Welcome back to Vatican Watch. But today, this isn't just a report. This is a moment history didn't see coming. In a sacred hall meant for peace, prayer, and papal unity. A shadow moved, and in a heartbeat, everything changed. Cardinal Luis Tagle, beloved by millions, feared by a few, and seen by many as the future of a reformed Catholic Church, was attacked. Not in a distant land, not during a controversial speech. No, inside the very heart of the Vatican, during a high-level gathering attended by the most powerful voices of the Church. But what happened next was what no one expected. You see, this wasn't just an act of aggression. It was a test. A test of spirit, of leadership, of the soul of the Church itself. And as stunned officials froze, security scrambled, and whispers turned into chaos. Cardinal Tagle stood still. His attackers might have thought they struck fear into the halls of St. Peter, but what they unleashed was something far deeper, an act of radical mercy that no one saw coming. We now have exclusive footage that captured that very moment, his face steady as stone, his eyes brimming not with fear, not with rage, but with something far more dangerous to evil, grace. And in a stunning act that stunned onlookers, he extended his hand, not in retaliation, but in peace, in forgiveness, in absolute defiance of hatred. Was this naivety or something higher? What you're about to witness may forever alter the way the world sees Cardinal Tagle, and more importantly, the way it sees faith in action. Because as Pope Leo XIV sat only steps away, his newly appointed cardinal bishop, his trusted advisor, the man who once placed the fisherman's ring on his very hand, became a symbol of what the Church could be. Not just a fortress of rules and rituals, but a living flame of mercy, even in the presence of betrayal. Already, whispers ripple. Through the Curia, was the attack a personal vendetta? A message from enemies within? Or perhaps something orchestrated by factions who fear what Tagle represents? A church that dares to look forward. Rumors swirl of hidden files, of threats exchanged in secret, of those who say Tagle may know too much, of the scandals buried beneath marble floors and sealed behind Latin silence. But none of that mattered in that one holy, terrifying moment. What mattered was what he chose to do. And now, Vatican insiders are speaking. Some say this wasn't the first threat against Tagle in recent weeks. Others claim he was warned not to attend that meeting at all. Yet he came anyway, quietly, humbly, ready to serve. And now, the world is watching, because when the blow came, he didn't flinch. When fear knocked, he didn't run. He turned and forgave. Eyewitnesses say the room went silent, not out of reverence, but out of confusion. No one could quite believe what they were seeing. Here, in the very city where martyrs once died, where apostles once walked, a man stood against the spirit of violence with the power of Christ himself. A Vatican guard whispered to us. It felt like something ancient was happening. Like the Book of Acts, unfolding in real time. Is this the beginning of something new, or the eruption of something long suppressed? One thing is certain. This moment has ignited fire across Catholic circles worldwide. Online forums flood with prayers, debates, and tears. Some call it weakness, others call it prophecy. But all agree, it cannot be ignored. And Pope Leo XIV? He hasn't spoken. Not yet. But sources close to the pontiff tell us he wept upon seeing the footage. Not out of fear, but out of conviction. Because he knows what happened in that room wasn't just about one man being attacked. It was about what the Church would do next. Some say it will tighten security, limit access, restrict openness in favor of safety. Others, including the Pope's closest spiritual advisors, see it differently. They say this is proof of a Church still alive, with the Spirit, still willing to walk the narrow road, even when it costs. And so we ask, What does it mean to follow Christ when the dagger comes not from the outside world, but from within the temple? What does forgiveness look like? Not in theory, but when the blood is real and the danger present? Tagle gave us an answer, not in words, but in presence, in posture, in open hands, the same hands that once held a chalice, the same hands that laid a ring upon the finger of the new pope, the same hands now offered in peace to the one who tried to harm him. And that gesture, that decision, has torn open the hearts of believers and skeptics alike. Because in this polarized age, in this wounded church, in this broken world, perhaps what we need isn't louder sermons or stronger security. Perhaps what we need is exactly what he showed us. But the story doesn't end there. Behind closed doors, the Vatican is rattled. Cardinals divided. Old power players whispering about consequences. A reformer showing love where others demanded justice. And a pope. Who must now choose? Will he back this example? Or be drawn into the tide of caution and containment? All eyes are now on Rome. And as for Cardinal Tagle, he returned to his office and prayed. The same room where, days earlier, anonymous letters warned him to step back from Pope Leo's reform agenda. The same room where he wrote letters to bishops calling for transparency, for justice, for compassion. Now that same room holds the weight of something heavier, a moment that may define his legacy. This wasn't a political move. It was a spiritual, line drawn in silence, and the Church must now decide which side of that silence it will stand on. And so the incense still hangs in the air, thick and trembling, as if heaven itself paused to watch what took place. This was no ordinary incident. This was a signal, a moment when the veil between the visible and the invisible tore just enough for us to feel it. The Church trembling at the altar of its own reckoning. Because this was not just about Cardinal Luis Tagle being attacked. It was about the bride of Christ being tested. A test that was seen by the angels, echoed by the saints, and recorded in eternity. Tagle, often called the heart of Asia, has long been misunderstood by both left and right. Too gentle for the powerful, too compassionate for the cunning, too spiritual for the strategic. And yet it is precisely that kind of man who becomes a threat, not to the people of the world, but to the hidden powers within the walls of the Vatican. The ones who smile during the day and scheme by candlelight. The ones who wear robes of righteousness but carry daggers of tradition soaked in fear. These are not conspiracy theories. These are the warnings whispered by the mystics, by holy. Souls long gone and now re-emerging. You see, before this assault, Tagle was warned. Yes, warned. Sources within the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith confirm he received a letter sealed in red wax, unsigned, quoting the Gospel of John. They will put you out of the synagogues. In fact, the time is coming when anyone who kills you will think they are offering a service to God. Chilling and prophetic, and still, he went. He walked into that gathering not with fear, but with prayer. He carried no armor, only a rosary, no defense, only the Eucharist. In his heart, and when the strike came, the sudden motion, the fall of a chalice, the cry that cut through the stillness, his first act was not to shield himself, but to bless his attacker with the sign of the cross. Eyewitnesses wept. A bishop reportedly dropped to his knees. Security hesitated, confused, disarmed not by force, but by the supernatural calm that overtook the room like a second Pentecost. And now the Vatican trembles. Not from fear of another attack, but from what this response has unleashed. Because this moment pierced something far deeper than any blade could reach. It pierced the hidden war within the Church. There are those, high-ranking, veiled in prestige, who see this act of mercy as weakness, who call for silence, order, the return of cold decorum. And then there are those, priests in villages, nuns in cloisters, children in pews, who see in this act a divine warning, a heavenly trumpet blast, that God is watching, that Christ is walking again among the lampstands, and that his bride, the Holy Catholic Church, is being purified, tested in fire. This isn't just about Vatican reform. This isn't about politics. This is about the soul of the Church. Because if a man like Tagle can be assaulted in the presence of the Pope himself, then what else lies beneath the marble smiles and golden mitres? Insiders now whisper of a council of darkness, term used in hushed tones by former Swiss guards and archivists alike. A faction not bound by loyalty to Christ, but by loyalty to power. Men who see the Church not as the bride, but as an empire. Who trade favors like indulgences, and speak of purification only as a tool to purge rivals, not sins. It is these forces, some believe, who feared what Tagle represents, a church that forgives, a church that listens, a church that bleeds, like its Savior did. Pope Leo XIV, elevated from a lesser-known American cardinal to the throne of Peter by divine twist, now faces his greatest decision yet. He has praised Tagle publicly. He has embraced him. He even allowed him to place the fisherman's ring on his finger, a gesture not just ceremonial but deeply symbolic. Now he must act again. Will he protect the heart of compassion? Or will he fold to those demanding? Strict to control, we are standing at the crossroads of the Catholic apocalypse, not the end of the world, but the unveiling of the heart. That's what apocalypsis means. The unveiling. And something is being unveiled now in Rome that has shaken the foundations of centuries-old silence. Because what was once secret is no longer safe. A leaked memo, now circulating among senior clergy, reportedly outlines a plan to quietly reassign Cardinal Tagle to a position far from Rome. For his safety, it claims. But many see through it. They know what it really means. Exile, a silencing, a political maneuver wrapped in pastoral concern. But heaven sees all, and as pilgrim crowds gather now in St. Peter's Square, some in protest, others in prayer, a storm is forming. Not of weather, but of divine reckoning. Old prophecies are being pulled from the shelves. The secrets of Fatima are being whispered again. Visionaries from the East speak of a man in white being betrayed by those closest to him, and mystics from Africa claim the next cleansing of the Church will not come by fire, but by truth. And at the center of it all, one man stands, wounded not by flesh, but by love. Tagle, the man some called too kind, too naive, too meek. And yet in this moment, we see that it is the meek who shall inherit the Church. It is the peacemakers who shall be called sons of God, and it is the ones who turn the other cheek, not in cowardice, but in Christ-like defiance, who will carry the cross into the next age of the Church. So what now? What will Pope Leo XIV say? What will the world believe? And what will you, watching this, do? Because this is not just about a story in Rome. This is a mirror held up to all of us. Are we prepared to be a church of convenience or a church of the crucified? Are we willing to be safe or to be holy? The road ahead is dark, but the light of saints is rising. And if you listen closely, you can almost hear it, the rumbling in the heavens, the breath of angels, the hush before the storm. The Church is being sifted, and the bride is being prepared. Then let the silence be broken again. Let the trumpets sound from the heavenly ramparts, for the hour is later than we think. Because this is not merely about the shaking of one man. This is the roaring of the spirit realm within the eternal gates of Rome. Do you feel it? The very stones of the Vatican groan beneath the weight of decisions made in secret corridors. Marble saints stare from their niches with unblinking eyes, watching the betrayal of their legacy unfold before them. And beneath the Sistine ceiling, painted with glory, stained by quiet compromise, angels tremble as ancient covenants are tested again in the fire of this present hour. The bride of Christ, so long adorned in beauty, yet scarred by centuries of silence, now finds herself face to face with her own purgation. And at the center of this sacred storm stands Pope Leo XIV, elevated not by ambition but by mystery. Elected in a conclave filled with whispered alliances, unspoken fears, and sudden shifts no one predicted. A man who rose through quiet fidelity, now placed in the eye of an apocalyptic confrontation between two visions of the Church, and behind him, Luis Antonio Cardinal Tagle, the man who bled mercy in the face of attack, the man whose name was once floated in hushed tones as the next pope, but who now faces exile, disgrace, and isolation at the hands of those who cannot bear the light of grace. But grace, dear listener, is not soft. Grace is not weakness. Grace is God's final weapon, and it is being wielded now in the halls of the Vatican like a double-edged sword, separating truth from tradition, wheat from tares, shepherds from wolves. Because what many do not see, what the world's cameras cannot capture, is that this physical attack upon Cardinal Tagle was a spiritual strike, aimed not at the man, but at the very heart of the Church's future. There are factions within the Vatican who wear the garments of piety but are drenched in the ambitions of Lucifer. Yes, I speak this without hesitation. They speak in Latin but think in politics. They bless with holy water but curse in private rooms. They have grown fat on secrecy, bloated on backroom power, and now they feel their kingdom trembling because light has entered the chamber. Tagle is dangerous not because he wants to tear down the Church. He is dangerous because he remembers what the Church was meant to be. A bride clothed in humility. A city of saints, not senators. A place where the broken come to be healed, not silenced. And those who oppose him, they do so not out of doctrine, but out of dread. Because deep down they know the days of judgment are approaching. Old manuscripts held in Vatican vaults, forgotten by all but a few archivists, speak of a time when the Church would be shaken from within, when brother would rise against brother, when even the chair of Peter would weep with the knowledge of infiltration, when a man of mercy would be struck, and the heavens would answer. And now that moment is here. Strange signs have already begun. A lightning strike, hours after the attack, hit the dome of St. Peter's, just as it did the night Pope Benedict XVI resigned. Birds, thousands of them, were seen circling above Castel Gandolfo in eerie formation. An ancient statue of the Virgin in a Neapolitan chapel began weeping red tears. Investigators dismissed it as condensation, but the faithful know better. The Church is groaning. Creation is responding, and within the palace walls the secrets mount. Rumors of a hidden document, the Fifth Protocol, meant to be read only in times of apostolic betrayal. A parchment said to contain the prophecy of a time when the papal throne itself would be surrounded by wolves in sheep's vestments. And now, many believe it has been opened. Insiders claim Pope Leo XIV has seen it. And since that day, his silence has grown deeper. Not empty silence, but pregnant with decision. The kind of silence that comes before a decree is issued, before a sword is drawn, before the heavens part. You see, Pope Leo faces a choice no pope should ever face. Does he protect the man who showed Christ's heart, Cardinal Tagle, now a symbol of divine forgiveness? Or does he appease the roaring lions beneath his feet, those who hunger for control, for secrets, for survival, at the cost of truth? The Holy Spirit is moving, but so is the adversary, and this is the part most cannot see. The spiritual battle raging over the Vatican is not new. It is ancient. It is the final echo of the war begun in heaven. The rebellion of pride, the casting down of stars, the whisper of the serpent into the ears of those once called holy. But God is not mocked. He is watching. And even now, the throne of Peter trembles, not from scandal, but from the approach of divine judgment. Because if the Church will not purify herself, heaven will do it for her. Already faithful bishops in hidden places are forming what some call the Marian Alliance. Shepherds determined to stand with the Virgin to protect the Church from within. They are fasting. They are praying. They are preparing for confrontation, not with weapons of the world, but with the weapons of the Lamb. And the laity, the people of God, they are waking up. Young Catholics in Manila, in Nigeria, in Krakow, in Argentina, they are watching. They are no longer satisfied with church as performance, as ritual without fire. They want truth, they want holiness, they want Christ, and they see it. In Tagle. But will he be cast aside? Will the Vatican turn its back on the very grace it claims to defend? Or will Pope Leo XIV rise, not as a politician, but as a prophet? Because let us be clear, this is the hour of purification. The bride of Christ will be cleansed, not with detergent but with blood. The Spirit is calling, the winds of revelation are stirring, and Rome is not ready.